Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. Over the years, I worked on very different website projects, different people, different needs, different perspective. Every website was different, but despite all those differences, I found myself noticing the same patterns over and over again. And what's interesting is that those patterns had very little to do with website itself. They usually appeared long before we started designing, and they kept influencing the website long after it was launched. That's what I'd like to share with you today. So, before we begin, just a few words about me. I'm a website designer and strategist. I became an entrepreneur after a decade of full time motherhood. I built my business after relocating. I have two kids, no pets. And somehow, freelancing, relocation, kindergarten, school, new language, dealing with residence permits all happened at the same time. Even with my tech background, I felt with every cell of my body how important a good plan is, and at the same time, how every good plan needs room for real life. I'm sharing this because I think our experiences shape how we solve problems. Mine taught me to look for the biggest gap first, rather than trying to fix everything at once. Value clarity over complexity, and to build systems that works in real life, not just on paper. So today I'd like to share three gaps that I see again and again. These gaps usually don't look like website problems. People often think they need better copy or better design or another page. Sometimes they do, but surprisingly often those things are symptoms rather than the actual problem. We look at three gaps, three mistakes that create them, and the mindset shifts that help close them. Let's start from first gap. Imagine you are at a networking event. You had a lovely conversation with someone. They ask what you do, you explain it, they seem genuinely interested. Then comes that moment. Can I have your website? You smile, send them the link, and then, almost immediately, you hope they won't open it right now. Or maybe you even say, actually, LinkedIn probably tells the story better. The story I just described is usually where people start thinking they need a better website. Maybe new colors, maybe better copy, maybe different layout. Sometimes that's true. But very often, the website is simply reflecting something that hasn't been fully defined yet. When I work with clients, I notice that most of them know the basics. They know who they help, they know their offer, they know the transformation. But when I ask questions like, what makes working with you different? What do people remember after working with you? What values shape the way you work? That's where it becomes much harder. Those things often live in our heads. We feel them, but we often don't put them into words. Maybe because we are busy, or maybe because we think we should sound more professional, more coach like, more like everyone else. Anyway, the mistake isn't starting with the wrong font. The mistake is trying to communicate something that hasn't been fully clarified yet. That's why I encourage people to pause before thinking about pages and sections. Instead, ask yourself, what do I want people to understand, feel, and remember after visiting my website? Because once that becomes clear, the website becomes much easier to design. And in my experience, nothing brings more satisfaction than seeing a website finally feel aligned with who you are and how you work. Let's talk about Gap 2. Imagine you've just launched a new offer. People start responding to your posts, they send you DMs, they ask questions, some book discovery calls. At first, it's exciting. But after a few days, you realize you're answering the same questions again and again. You keep sending the same links, explaining the same processes, looking for the same pages, sending the same PDFs, writing the same emails. And at the end of the week, you are exhausted. Not because there was so much interest, but because you had to hold the whole process together. Your website was there, but it wasn't really helping. And that's when another thought appears. Do I even need this website? Everyone just messages me directly anyway. The second gap is about purpose. I often meet coaches who say, I need a website. And my next question is always, what should this website actually do for your business? Sometimes the answer is surprisingly difficult because the website has quietly become its own project, something that exists next to the business instead of inside it. But a website isn't just something people visit. It's one touch point in a much bigger journey. Some people discover you through LinkedIn, others through a podcast. Some arrive after recommendation. Some are already your clients, and each of them needs something different. When you understand the role your website plays in those journeys, many decisions suddenly becomes much easier. What pages you need, what information belongs there, what happens after someone books, how everything connects together. So instead of asking, does my website look professional? Start asking, what job should my website do? Because that job can be very different. Maybe your website's main role is to generate leads. Maybe it's to support your sales process. Maybe it's the place where people go to truly understand your work. Maybe it's there to strengthen your authority and build trust. Or maybe for this stage of your business, it's simply there to give people a place to verify who you are. None of those answers is wrong. The problem is when there is no answer at all. Because once your website has a clear job, it starts shaping more than the website itself. It shapes your client's journey, your business processes, even your everyday decisions. Instead of becoming another thing to manage, it starts becoming part of how your business works. At last, the gap 3. Imagine you are updating your website. You open your website because you want to update one sentence. Then you notice another page needs updating. Then another. Suddenly you're changing fonts on one page, deleting a section on another, moving buttons, adding testimonial. And after an hour, you close the laptop thinking it still doesn't feel right. Nothing is exactly wrong, but somehow the whole thing feels tired. The third gap is probably the trickiest one for me to talk about with clients. Not because redesigning a website is difficult, but because by this point, the business is usually working. Clients are coming, the offers are selling, the systems are in place, life is moving. And then I come in and say, I think your website has outgrown itself. That's not always an easy thing to hear, because changing a website isn't just changing a website. It means stopping for a moment and finding the energy to rethink something that technically still works. But let's see. Business evolve. You evolve. You gain confidence. You refine your offers. You change the way you work. Now, how is it going for a website? You keep updating little things. One sentence, new testimonial, different photo, new service, and each update makes sense on its own. But after a few years, the website starts feeling like a patchwork. Not because it's badly designed, simply because it was built for a different version of your business. Sometimes the best thing you can do isn't another update. It's stepping back, looking at the whole picture, and asking, if I were building this website today, would I build it the same way? Sometimes the answer is no. When I started working as a website designer, I thought my job was quite straightforward. Create a website that looks professional, feels feminine, is easy to navigate, converts well, works on mobile, ranks on Google. Basically, build a good website. And I could do that. But I often left projects feeling that we had solved the website without really solving the problem. Today, I don't think that's the real job anymore, because in most cases, the website isn't the starting point. It's the place where all the decisions you already made about your business become visible. If your business isn't clear yet, the website will struggle to communicate it. If your website doesn't have a clear role in your business, no redesign will fix that. If your business has evolved, eventually your website will ask to evolve too. And when you build clarity, connection, and room for growth, the website naturally becomes something you are proud to share. Of course, seeing the gaps is one thing. Knowing what to do next is another. That's where I can help. If you're not sure where to start, I'd love to invite you to a free introductory call. We'll take a look at your business and your website and try to identify which of these gaps is having the biggest impact right now. And you leave with more clarity about your next step. Whether we work together or not, I hope today's presentation give you a different way of looking at your website. The next time something feels off, maybe don't ask, what should I change on my website? Ask, what is my website trying to tell me about my business? Thank you so much for being here today.